وعليكم السلام صح كيف حالك؟ الحمد لله.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah. Wa sallallahu ala nabi. Briefly, before we stop, mopping up, inshallah, we'll read from, the book that we said we're going to read from, Fath al-Bari. Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, after he discusses several different issues with this hadith, we'll select some of what he said and some of his commentary. It says here, وَمَعْنَا أَجْوَدَ النَّاسِ أكثر الناس جودا والجود الكرم وهو من الصفات المحمودة وقد أخرج الترمذي من حديث سعد رفعه إن الله جواد يحب الجود الحديث وله في حديث أنس رفعه أنا أجود ولد آدم وأجوده من بعدي رجل علم علما فنشر علمه ورجل جاهد بنفسه في سبيل الله وفي سنده مقال وسيأتي في الصحيح من وجه آخر عن أنس كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أشجع الناس وأجود الناس الحديث. He says first and foremost, after he speaks on the Rijal al-Isnad that we've already done that, he says وَمَعْنَا أَجْوَدَ النَّاسِ, and what's meant by أَجْوَدَ النَّاسِ, he says أَكْثَرُ النَّاسِ جُودًا, the most generous man, he who had the most jud, the most generosity, period. Not just of his time, but what? Period. And even if a person came and argued and says this person is more generous, so on and so forth, he can never ever give what the Prophet ﷺ what? Gave. Moving forward, he says here, وَهُوَ مِنَ الصِّفَاتِ الْمَحْمُودَةِ, and generosity is from the good things to have. Characteristics of good, of virtue. Meaning, if there was a man who's claimed to be complete and perfect, he would have to have in his checklist what? Generosity. If he was stingy, if he was miserly, if he was a bit tight-fisted, as we say, short hands with deep pockets in the United States, there's no way that he can be from the complete men. There's a list of things that we have to have checked off on his list. He has to be courageous, he has to be truthful, he has to be learned, he has to be kada, and he also has to be what? Generous. With his wealth, with his time, with his money, with his ilm, etc. Also with his what? His clout, his status. Someone needs to get married, someone's looking for a job, someone needs to get accepted in university. You put in a good word for them. You intercede for them. Please help him out. He's a good friend of mine. This is my neighbor's son. This is my student. Kada. You use your name to help people out. That's also from the types of ihsan and jud, being generous. Moving forward, Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, he then quotes some supporting hadiths for that one point, as I just said. So in Qur'an al-Hadith, hypothetically speaking, you have to memorize this one hadith. You have to memorize 3 subsidiary hadiths. 3 subsidiary supporting hadiths. So the curriculum is not just going to be 250 hadiths, but it's going to be what? وهكذا 700, 600, depending on the issue. He says that At-Tirmidhi rahimahullah has collected the narration of Sa'ad radiallahu anhu that Allah is Jawad. Inna Allah Jawadun. Allah is ever munificent, the most generous, the most kind, the most giving, ever bountiful. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yuhibbul Jud. And Allah loves that from His servants. That's a tremendous hadith. It affirms something that belongs to Allah, and it also teaches us that Allah loves that thing from His servants. And we know there are many attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that are His attributes that the servant should take that example. Not all of Allah's attributes, Al-Kabir, Al-Muta'al, Al-Jabbar, Al-Mutakabbir, no. But other attributes of Allah that the servant should take the example thereof. Allah Azza wa Jal knows everything, and He loves ilm. And that is an encouragement to seek knowledge and not be ignorant. Allah is strong, most powerful, and He loves people of strength and power. Allah is forgiving, pardoning, and He loves His servants to forgive and to pardon as well, and overlook the mistakes of others. And Allah is generous, and He loves generosity. And this also means Allah is not stingy. As the, I don't know if I can say that here in this masjid. Last time I said the word, Yahud in the masjid, Allahumma musta'an, the khutbah was taken down. I'm being serious. I don't know if I can say that here, Abu Isa? Allah said about the people in the Quran that they said that Allah's hand is what? Maghlula, waliyadu billah. Tied up and clenched. And Allah says, Bal yadahu mabsutatan. Nay, you have lied. Allah says, Bel, no, that's not true. Allah's hands are outstretched. Allah is giving all of the time to everyone. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah is kind, He's generous, He's giving, He's bountiful, and He also loves that from His servants. And that proves that Allah does not have the attributed characteristic of the opposite of generosity, nor does He like the opposite from His servants. Allah loves His generous slaves, and He does not like and love what? His stingy slaves. Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, and there's another narration collected by Tirmidhi of Anas radiallahu anhu, in which the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu is quoted to have said, Ana ajwadu waladi Adam. I am the most generous sons of Adam. There's no human being that can be more what? Generous than I. وَأَجْوَدُهُمْ بَعْدِي رَجُلٌ عَلِمَ عِلْمًا فَنَشَرَ عِلْمَهُ. And he says, and the most generous humans after me are those people who learn knowledge and spread that knowledge. Allahu Akbar. Is a man who alima ilman, who learns some information and he does what? He spreads it, he disseminates it, he gives it out to the people. Also, وَرَجُلٌ جَادَ لَيْسَ جَاهَدَ هذا سبق لسان وَرَجُلٌ جَادَ بِنَفْسِهِ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَإِنْ كَانَ المعنى واحد لكن هذا كان سبق لسان. And a man جَادَ who is generous with his nafs in the cause of Allah, meaning his blood was cheap and invaluable in the cause of Allah. Listen to this hadith. My life, my safety, me returning home in the cause of Allah is of total insignificance. Allahu Akbar. My life is insignificant in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who from among us can say this? This is our stance. That your blood means nothing in light of Islam and the preservation and the propagation of Islam. And then Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar says, وَفِي سَنَدِهِ مَقَالٌ. And this hadith, its chain of narration isn't the strongest. It isn't the what? The strongest. But we benefit so far the permissibility of mentioning hadiths which aren't necessarily the strongest. And it's not necessarily the correct view in the way of the ulama, all of them, let alone the earlier ulama, the mutaqaddimin, in which a hadith which is daif has no value whatsoever. That's not the way of the earlier ulama of Islam. In which a weak hadith has no value and is to be excluded and cut out from a book and not mentioned. And tabihu. Moving forward, Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, he then goes on to express some linguistics of the hadith and the i'rab of the hadith. As we said, you learn that in Kulit al-Hadith about the gharib, the vocabulary of the hadith. You learn nahu via the sunnah. You learn the i'rab via the hadith. Everyone understand this? And not this poem or fulan and this sha'ir and this book and this poem, but directly, organically from the what? From the hadith. Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, after he explains all of these different linguistics, it says, فَيُدَارِسُهُ الْقُرْآنِ قِيلَ الحكمة فيه أن مدارسة القرآن تجدد له العهد بمزيد غنى النفس والغنى سبب الجود والجود في الشرع إعطاء ما ينبغي لمن ينبغي وهو عام من الصدقة وأيضا في رمضان موسم الخيرات لأن نعم الله على عباده فيه زائدة على غيره فكان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يثير متابعة سنة الله في عباده فبمجموع ما ذكر من الوقت والمنزول به والنازل والمذاكرة حصل المزيد في الجود والعلم عند الله تعالى. انظر هذا الكلام يكتب بمهل العينين يا شيخ أليس كذلك؟ They said this speech is more valuable, it's so valuable that you could write it with the water from your eyes. If you had to make ink and the only water that you had were your tears, it will be what? It will be worth it. What did he say? It wouldn't be a what? A wasted life. Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, When the Messenger of Allah ﷺ was studying the Quran with Jibreel, what is the wisdom, nur, between this and him being ajwad, even more generous? He says, qila. Some scholars say, and that's another benefit from this book, is that the ulama benefit from each other. The scholars of hadith benefited from each other. And there was no ego, I'm making the sharh, I'm only going to explain what I feel, what I think. No, they benefited from each other. And they took from each other. Not how we live in cliquish culture today, in which there's no good except in our center, and our masjid. And everyone else is upon misguidance and is going to the fire of hell outside of these walls. And there's no one to learn from and to benefit from unless we mandate it to you. You can sit with them and you can study with them. It was never the attitude of the ulama of Islam. He says, qila, some people say. And he didn't mention what? Who said it? Qila, he says, they say, the wisdom behind this is that, he says, reviewing the Quran, studying the Quran, تجدد له العهد بغنى النفس. It rejuvenates, it resurrects, it freshens the richness of the soul. غنى النفس. The true richness is not the richness of material possessions, but it's how much richness you possess in your soul. That you are, bidinai ta'ala, doing away with begging and asking. And Allah Azza wa Jalla is the razak. He is the one who gives the sustenance. Ghina nafs. If you have expensive material things, alhamdulillah. And if you don't have those expensive material things, you say what? You say alhamdulillah, I can survive, I can do fine. So when he reviewed the Quran, it did what? It did what? He says tujaddid. It renewed this richness of the nafs. And ghina, richness, is the reason behind what? Generosity. I'm generous because I'm rich. Whether I'm tangibly rich or whether I'm spiritually what? Rich. Listen carefully. I have a lot of wealth, so I give from it. Giving doesn't hurt my wealth. I have a little wealth, and I also give, or with my knowledge, my time, my body, or whatever other thing that you can give, because you know that it only came to you from what? Allah Azza wa Jalla. But he who is stingy, he who is a miser, whether he has a lot or a little, doesn't give that much because he's stingy inside as well. He doesn't have the ghina nafs. Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says in Jude, the Islamic understanding of generosity is, because there's a linguistical understanding of it, cultural understanding of it. In my culture, generous is to slaughter a cow for your guest. In my culture, generous is to give the guest the head of the fish. In my culture, generous is to do this and to do that. In my culture, where I come from, you kiss your guest on his nose and you bow down and kiss his feet. That's generous in my culture. That's not necessarily generosity in the what? In the Sharia. He says, إِعْطَاءُ مَا يَنْبَغِي لِمَنْ يَنْبَغِي. It's to give what's necessary to those whom necessary to give. It's to give what you should to those whom you should. Give what you're supposed to those whom you're supposed to. Whether that's a guest, whether that is a scholar who visits you, your wife, your children, your husband, your neighbor. Ma yambaghi, giving what's necessary to those who deserve that. He says that's Jude in the Sharia. And he says, and this is more general than sadaqah. Sadaqah is one thing, generosity is what? Is a broader concept. Sadaqah is one. Generosity is what? Is larger. You can give Jude, you can be generous more than just giving something which is of sadaqah. Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala even says, also another reason why he was more generous in Ramadan is because Ramadan, mawsimul khayrat. It was the season of good, the season of hasanat, the season of good deeds. Even the non-Muslims today, what do they say during Christmas? They say what? They say what? They say 'tis the season. They say what? You never heard that before? Brothers don't live in America or the UK. He said what? 'Tis the season. It's the time to give charity. It's the time to be happy. It's the time to visit your family. It's a mosim. They understand that. It is a season of doing what? Doing even more. Everyone understand this? So that's what they say. What about what? Well, we should what? Believe and say. 'Tis the season. Ramadan is what? Is the season of giving, of going above and beyond of your normal, natural level of what? Generosity. He says, so Ramadan was a time and a season of good. And that is because Why is Ramadan a season of doing more good? Allah's favors upon His servants are even more in the month of Ramadan. What Allah has given you, which is so much. وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ, you can't count Allah's favors if you tried to. You couldn't. You may lose your mind. Literally, you may go mad if you sat down and attempted to count all of the things that Allah has given you. Not only would you be incapable of doing it, but you may actually what? You may go mad trying to figure that out. Where do you start? Where do you begin? Writing down and listening to all of Allah's blessings upon you. And in the month of Ramadan, those blessings are what? Even more. Za'idah. You get even more blessings. So the Prophet ﷺ, he wanted to follow Allah's Sunnah. And the Sunnah of Allah is to give more during, and that's why the Messenger of Allah gave more during Ramadan. Everyone understand this? The Sunnah of Allah was to be more generous in Ramadan. So the Messenger of Allah wanted to follow the Sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala concerning His servants. He says, فَبِمَجْمُوعِ مَا ذُكِرَ. He says, so therefore the Prophet was more generous because of the combined elements. Number one, al-waqt was the time, which was, what was the time? Ramadan, like we said earlier. Fasting, Ramadan, two different what? Things. Number two, he says, wal-manzur bihi. He says, in the thing that was brought to him, which was the Quran, wal-nazil. And the one who descended and came, who was? Jibreel. Everyone understand this now? It made him more generous, first and foremost, because of the time. The time, al-waqt. Number two, wal-manzul bihi. Because of the thing that was what? Sent down, which was the what? The Quran, the kalam of Allah. And also the visitant, the guest, the teacher, who was? Jibreel. Everyone understand this now? So now I have a virtuous guest. He's a student of knowledge coming to my house in Ramadan, bringing me books. Everyone understand this? He's a student of knowledge, and he's bringing me a set of what? Sahih Bukhari. So these are three reasons why I give him what? An extra piece of lamb. More rice. Everyone understand this? I give him what? I give him even more. I'm even more generous. Everyone understand this or not? Moving forward, Hafidh ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala then says, and the knowledge, the correct view and the understanding is only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yani, absolutely. Moving forward. He says here, وَالْمُرْسَلَةِ أي المطلقة يعني أنه في الإسراء بالجود أسرع من الريح وعبر بالمرسلة إشارة إلى دوام هبوبها بالرحمة وإلى عموم النفع بجوده كما تعم الريح المرسلة جميع ما تهب أو تهب عليه. ووقع عند أحمد في آخر هذا الحديث لا يسأل شيئا إلا أعطاه. وثبتت هذه الزيادة في الصحيح من حديث جابر سئل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم شيئا فقال لا. He then says, the reason why Ibn Abbas said that the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم was more general than the rih mursala, the scent wind, the cool scent breeze, for the following reasons. Number one is speed. Faster than what? Speed, as they say. Let your rapidity be that of the wind. That's what the wise man said in the manual. He said, let your rapidity be like that of the wind. Wind comes and it goes. Everyone understand this or not? Let alone a tornado, a hurricane. It does what? It's so violent, it's so fast, the velocity is so high, which it uproots a house, a building. Crushes steel and wood in its way because the wind is so what? So fast. Everyone understand this? It's seamless. The wind what? It blows. So the process, not only was he generous by being asked, but he himself what? Ran towards the generosity. He rushed to give and to hand out. Listen to these words now. The process, he didn't wait for the people to come and knock on his door and ask him, but he what? He rushed. Or if he was asked something, he didn't have to think about it and ponder over it. A brother calls you, Assalamu alaikum, I'm in a bad situation. Can I borrow 500 pounds? Let me get back with you, inshallah. Let me check. Let me see what I have. I'll call you back. Most of us, right? How can I get the money to you? When can I meet you? Come to my house right now, no problem. Can I send it to you in America, say PayPal or Cash App? There's no delaying when my brother needs something and he asks me for something. I have a question, Sheikh. Inshallah, after the class, tomorrow, next week, this and that. I try my best to do what? Be quick. So that was the first reason behind Ibn Abbas mentioning that similitude, the linguistics. He said he was like the wind, the breeze that was sent. Number two, and he also says because the wind is constantly blowing, it's always moving. The generosity doesn't start, it doesn't stop. It's what? Continuous. And the whole entire month. And many people, they burn out in Ramadan. They start off giving food, giving iftar, giving suhoor, giving sadaqah. And as the days go by, you find them what? They start falling off. And you find other brothers the exact opposite. They become even more and more generous towards the end of Ramadan. He then says, and also the benefit is for all. Wind falls upon what? Everything that it encounters. Wind doesn't discriminate. It blows and that's it. Whatever's outside fills the wind. The kafir, the mu'min, the tree, the stone, the sidewalk, whatever's outside, it gets touched by the what? Get touched by the wind. That was the Prophet ﷺ's character. And he mentioned some more supporting hadiths, in which the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he was never asked something in Ramadan except that he did what? He gave it. He never said no. He never said no in Ramadan. He was asked something and he did that thing. He complied. طيب, moving forward. He says, وقال النووي في الحديث فوائد منها الحث على الجود في كل وقت ومنها زيادة في رمضان ومنها الاجتماع بأهل الصلاح وفيه زيارة الصلحاء وأهل الخير وتكرار ذلك إذا كان المزور لا يكرهه واستحباب الإكثار من القراءة في رمضان وكونها أفضل من سائر الأذكار إذ لو كان الذكر أفضل أو مساويا لفعلاه. Moving forward. Nawawi, he says, Ibn Hajar is quoting from Nawawi. Once more, the ulama benefiting from each other. Those who came before and building upon that commentary. Nawawi, he said, there are many benefits in this hadith. Many benefits in this hadith. Number one is the encouragement to be generous all of the time. The encouragement to be generous all of the time. Number two is to be more generous during Ramadan. But he says, in the ijtima' bi ahl salah is when you meet with the virtuous people, i.e., piety, righteousness, and generosity should be infectious. It should what? It should spread. And obviously, stinginess is also going to be what? Infectious. It will be passed on. If you don't what? Mind who you sit with, right? Moving forward, Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, and also visiting the righteous people, visiting the good pious people, and doing it abundantly over and over again as long as the host does not mind. If his door is open, he doesn't care, he's not bothered, it shouldn't just be a one-time visit. You should keep what? Visiting them over and over again. Next point is the recommendation of making an abundance of reciting and reading the Quran in the month of Ramadan. Next point is that this is the best supplication, the best dhikr. The best remembrance of Allah is the Quran. The best type of dhikr is the Quran. And that's because if there was something which was better to do, then Jibreel will have what? Instructed him to do that, but he didn't do that. Yudarisuhu, he taught him the Quran. So the Quran is the best dhikr. If you had a choice between making this dhikr, this supplication, or reciting the Quran, you would pick what? The Quran. Khayran, inshallah. And there are many, many, many other fawaid quoted by Ibn Hajar, quoted by An-Nawawi, fawaid quoted by other ulama, and fawaid that we ourselves have come up with. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Any other questions?
There's no time.
No time. Okay.
Yeah. Inshallah, maybe when we walk outside. Maybe now, when we walk outside.